How much water do you use each day? Well, that's a very interesting question, and in order for us to answer that question, we really need to know what we're talking about in terms of measurements. Let's have a look at these big wheelie bins. The biggest wheelie bin on the left has a capacity of 240 litres. So that's a big wheelie bin. Most houses have that size wheelie bin. It's very big. You'd probably fit in it if it were nice and clean. The next size wheelie bin is half the size. It's red. It's 120 litres. It doesn't look half the size there, does it? I think it's just the way the photo's been taken. It's a lot thinner and it's probably not as deep. But that's half the size. So 240 litres is a jumbo wheelie bin. 120 litres is a smaller wheelie bin. Then we can see there's a slightly smaller one at 100 litres, followed by 80 litres in pale blue, and finally 50 litres. Most of us have a kitchen bin, which is roughly anything between 40, 60, perhaps even 80 litres if it's a big kitchen bin indoors. So scientists have worked out that each person in our country uses roughly 150 litres of water every day. So that's one of those red wheelie bins, plus a little bit more, because the red wheelie bin had 120 litres in it. And remember, that's each person, not each household. And that figure has been going up every year by about 1%. It's been creeping up since the 1930s. Most people in this country actually consume a lot more than 150 litres, as water is in a lot of the food which we eat as well. So it's not just the obvious things like bathing, showering or using the washing machine. We also use water without even realising it sometimes. Every time you eat a piece of cucumber, it's mostly water. Every time you eat an apple, every time you boil a pan of potatoes or a pan of rice, you use water in lots of different ways, even though you don't think you're eating it. Why do you think that we use so much water? So let's see if we can get our head around this, shall we? If you lived in a household with 2 people in it, how many litres of water might you use per day? 2 people. Well, hopefully you're right. 300 litres, at least 300 litres. So that's going to be 3 of those dark green bins there on the right. 2 times 150 is 300. If you lived in a house of 3 people, then 3 times 150 makes 450. So 450 litres is going to be nearly 2 of those full-size green wheelie bins on the left. If there are 4 people in your household, then you would likely use 600 litres a day. That would be 2 of those huge wheelie bins plus 1 of the red ones. If you live in a house of 5 people, 750 litres. So that would be 3 of those big green bins plus another 30 litres. And finally, if you lived in a household with 6 people, you might be using at least 900 litres of water per day. So that would be 4 of those huge bins plus 1 of the black ones as well. So that's a lot of water. And as we said, that's before we even think about the water that's in the food that we eat. So let's have a look at filling a bathtub. Did you know that if you just have one normal bath, and that's not a bath that's overfull, just a normal bath full of water, that's 80 litres, the size of one of those blue bins. Compare that with a short shower, which can use as little as a third of that amount, around about 27 litres. So you could save quite a lot of water by having a shower instead of a bath. Some people also try to minimise how much water they waste or send down the plug by recycling their bath water. They have a special pipe, and the water that comes out of their bath, which is not that dirty really, instead of going down the drain, it goes into a water butt or it goes straight out onto their garden. Washing machines. Well, washing machines are very handy devices, aren't they? We like having clean clothes. A full washing machine, a full load in a washing machine, uses around about 65 litres of water. So that's one of those black bins, plus a bit more. And even a half load, a lot of washing machines have a half load button, would still use 50 litres. Many people are worried about how much water washing machines use, especially if they like to wash their clothes a lot. And so one of the solutions that people have come up with is to wait until you've got a full load before you put the washing machine on, and also consider that some articles of clothing, perhaps they don't need to be washed quite so often, because they're not next to your skin, they don't need to be washed every time you wear them. Most toilets use around 2.5 litres of water every time they are flushed. And according to the World Toilet Organization, yes, girls, there is such a thing as the World Toilet Organization, most people use the loo roughly 2,500 times a year, or about 6 to 8 times a day. When you do the maths on this, it's rather scary, because 2,500 times 2.5 litres rocks up a total of 6,250 litres per year for one person who goes to the loo. Some people try to save water in their loos by putting something into the cistern. The cistern is that tank behind a lot of loos where the handle is, and it contains the water that's about to be flushed. Some people put a brick or something else into the cistern to reduce the amount of water that is needed to flush. So let's try to imagine what that 6,250 litres looks like that is flushed down the loo by the average person. This is a 6,000 litre truck. Quite scary, isn't it? That's just one person flushing more than that down the loo each year. And if you're still having trouble imagining what 6,000 litres looks like, well, that's 25 of those jumbo wheelie bins full of water, flushed away, per person. One way in which a lot of water is used without people even realising it sometimes is dripping taps or running taps. A dripping tap can waste about 4 litres of water per day. If you leave a tap running, it wastes about 6 litres for every minute. So if you turn off the tap when you are brushing your teeth, that can save around 12 to 18 litres every time you brush your teeth. If every adult in England and Wales remembered to do that, we could save 180 million litres a day. And that's enough water to supply about 500,000 or 500,000 homes. So you can use a lot less water if, when you brush your teeth, you turn off the tap and only turn it on when you need to rinse your brush or rinse your mouth. Hose pipes use rather a lot of water. Most of them tend to use around about 170 litres for every 10 minutes that they're switched on. In an hour, a hose pipe will use the same amount of water as a whole family might use in 2 days. If you look at the pictures of the bins here, you can see that there's a variety of sizes. Which 2 bins could you get to add up to 170 litres there? Hopefully you've worked it out correctly. The big red bin is 120 litres, and if you add it to the black bin, 50 litres, 120 add 50 is 170. So that's what would be used in 10 minutes of having the hose pipe switched on. Reducing the amount of water that is used with a hose pipe, well, you can consider that when you water your garden, try to use a watering can and not a hose pipe. Just put the water where it's needed rather than spraying it all over the place. The other very environmentally friendly method to use is to install a water butt, a water tank, which collects rainwater off the roof, and use that instead for filling up the watering can rather than a garden tap. So if we come back to our original slide, we have those bins, and I wonder how much water you reckon you use in your household each day. On different days, it will vary. On some days you might switch on the washing machine twice, and on some days you might not switch it on at all. Some days you might put the dishwasher on once, and some days you might put it on 2 or 3 times if you've had lots of people around to your house, or whatever. So it will vary day by day. Our task is going to be to try and work out roughly how much we use so we get a better idea of how much water is being used in our own homes.